There was once a woodcutter who went to the same forest every day to chop wood. He would chop pieces of wood about this size, and when he had about this many, he would tie them round with a cord, put it over his shoulder, and take it to the market to sell. He did the same thing every single day. He knew all the pathways, all the trees, even the small creatures were the same. But one day, as he was walking, he heard a strange sound. And there beneath the leaves, he found a bamboo trap, and in that trap were captured 2 white birds. "Poor birds," said the woodcutter. "If I don't set you free, you will die." So he opened that trap and let the 2 white birds fly away free. After a while, he forgot all about the birds. And 25 years passed. He was married and had 2 children, and they moved away to another part of the country. But one morning, he said to his wife, "I think I'd like to go back to that forest where I used to chop wood and remember the days of my youth." She said, "Please, come home before it grows dark." He went to the forest. It was just as he recalled. The pathways that he knew so well, the trees, everything was the same. So he began to walk and walk among the trees. He walked until noon. He should have come to the other side of the trees, but in 25 years, that forest had grown so much bigger. Well, he kept walking, and he walked all afternoon until he realized that he was lost. Well, he kept journeying, and he walked on, but he couldn't find his way out of the forest. It began to grow dark, and he was cold and hungry. Well, he thought, if I don't find my way home tonight, I'll sleep here and find my way home in the morning. But it grew so dark that he couldn't go any further, and he stopped to rest beside a tree. When in the distance, he saw the light of a house. Why, that's strange. I don't remember anyone living here. And he thought he would go and ask if he could have something to eat and spend the night. He went to the house, and he knocked on the door. And the door opened. Chill ran down the woodcutter's back. For standing there was the strangest woman that he'd ever seen. She had long, black, straight hair that hung to her knees. Her skin was so white, it looked like paper, and her eyes were so bright, as if they were on fire. He would have run away, but the food that she was cooking smelled so good.
"Can I help you?"
I just wondered if I could have something to eat and spend the night. I'm lost. Come right in. And she shut the door. The Joe went down the woodcutter's back again. But the food that she was cooking smelled so good. He sat down at the table, and she gave him 3 bowls of food, 1 of rice, 1 of vegetables, 1 of sweet meat. He was hungry and began to eat. He ate everything in the 3 bowls, and when he was finished, he thought he would just ask that woman for more food. But when he turned around, she was no longer in the room. Then he heard a sound. And there by his feet, curled up around itself 3 times, lay a thick, red snake. It began to unwind and stand on its tail. And when it looked at the woodcutter, it had the face of that woman.
I have waited for you for 25 years. Do you remember those 2 white birds that you set free? They were mine, and I swore that I would kill you.
I didn't know they were yours. I would never have set them free.
No matter. By midnight tonight, I will swallow you.
Please, in every story I've ever heard, there's always a way to save oneself. Isn't there something I could do?
Yes. There is one thing. In this forest, there is an old temple with a bell that has not been rung for 200 years. If you ring that bell 12 times before midnight, you can go free. But if you do not, I will swallow you.
I think I'll go and find that temple as quickly as I can. And the woodcutter went to the door. But the snake slid up the door and said,
But you cannot leave this house.
If I cannot leave the house, how can I ring the bell?
Why, that is your problem.
What could he do? He sat down at the table. He tried to imagine the temple. He tried to think the bell to ring. But nothing happened. And he realized he was going to die. Then he heard the snake slide along the floor, and she twisted about herself 3 times, and she watched him with one eye open. He thought of every day of his life. He thought of his children and his wife. And then he closed his eyes and waited to die. At 5 minutes to midnight, he heard the snake. She began to unwind and slide along the floor, and then she twisted up the leg of the table, and she opened her second eye and looked straight into the woodcutter's face. At that moment, he heard a sound in the distance. Then he heard it again. It was the bell. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The house disappeared, and the snake vanished in thin air. And he was standing alone in the forest. Why, who saved me? Who rang that bell? He went in search of the temple, and not far from where the house stood, he found an old stone door covered with ivy, and he opened it. And inside was the temple, and there hung that old bell. He walked around and around, but there was no one there, and it looked as if it had not been rung in 200 years, until he noticed at the very edge of the bell white feathers and blood, and lying beneath the bell were the 2 white birds. They had thrown themselves against the bell to save the woodcutter who saved them. He picked them up, and their hearts still beat. So he tore the cloth from his shirt, and he wrapped their wings, and he cared for them, and he fed them, and he stayed with them until they were healed. And then one morning, he opened that old stone door and let the 2 white birds fly away free. woodcutter went home, and he lived safely and happily ever after.